Welcome to Flutter Teacher. In this session, we'll talk about the most essential topic in every object-oriented programming language, and that is the inheritance. Before I start the video, look at the topic that we'll cover in this session. We'll start from what is inheritance, then we'll talk about different benefits of using the inheritance, then we'll understand the different types of inheritance, and finally I will talk about the different concept, that is the different relationship in the classes like association, aggregation and composition. So without wasting time, let's get started. Let's start from what is inheritance. Inheritance is basically a process in which one class acquires the properties of another class. To inherit a class in your own class, that has given the keyword called extends. Look at the syntax of inheriting a class in our own class. We have to write a keyword called class. This is because we are creating a new class here. Then we have to write the name of subclass. Here the name of subclass is the name of class that we are defining here, that is our own class here. Then we have to write the keyword called extends because we are extending or we are inheriting the another class. And then we have to write the name of superclass. The superclass name is basically the name of class that you want to inherit or you want to make it as the parent class here. We have a simple example for this. Consider we have class A and the class A has to be inherited in a class B. So for this, what we have written? We have written a class, then we have B, means we want to define a class B, and inside this class B, we want to inherit the class A. That's why we have written extends A. It means the class B is extending, that is inheriting the class A here. And now diagrammatically, this is shown as the class A and the class B. Now you might be thinking that I have made a mistake while showing the arrows. The arrows has to be in downward direction. No, it has to be in upward direction. Why inheritance arrows are shown in upward direction? I will talk about this one in the next video where I will talk about the 10 different questions related to inheritance. So here if you observe, the class A, that is the class which we inherit, acts as the superclass, or it is also called the base class or the parent class. And the class which inherits the another class will act as a subclass. It means in this case the class B is acting as a subclass. It is also known as the derived class, or we can say this one as the child class. You might be thinking, what is the significance of writing extends A inside the class B? So when we write extends A for this class B, it means class B is inheriting class A. It means whatever members that class A has, it means the fields, methods, getters and setters, whatever the class A has, all will be inherited, that is all will be available inside the class B. But make sure that the constructor of class A, that is constructor of superclass, is never inherited in the subclass. So the reason for this I will talk in the next video where I will talk about 10 different questions related to inheritance. But just look at this example here. And now just observe here, inside the class A we have two fields and three methods. It means when we create the object of A, so for this object we can use two different fields and we can invoke the three different methods over this object A, and that's completely fine here. You can observe here, inside the class B only one field is visible and two methods are visible directly inside the class B. But as this B is extending a class A, so it means all the members of A except the constructor now becomes the members of B. Now it seems that class B has only one field, but practically it has one field of the class B, that is the class from itself, and from A it has got the two fields, means there are total three fields in class B. One is of its own and two are coming from the class A. Similarly, if you look at the methods here, B has two methods of its own and it is inheriting three different methods from class A. It means totally this class B has got five methods, two methods of its own and three methods that are coming from the class A. So whenever we create the object of B here, you can observe here inside this class B we have got three different fields and we can invoke five different methods over the object of B. Whenever we use inheritance, it always creates a relation called is A. It means we can say the class B is a class A, because if you observe class B, you can say class B is A because all the members of A are now members of the class B. You might have a question. Instead of using inheritance, that is, instead of extending A inside a B, we can copy the entire code of class A and we can paste it inside B, and it will have the same effect or same result what I have explained here right now. You might be correct, this is going to work, but using copy paste will lead to several issues and lots of problems. That's why it is preferred to use inheritance over the copy paste. And I will also talk about the problems that you will face if you use copy and paste over the inheritance, and I will talk about that one in the next video. Let's understand all this with an example program. We have class A that contains two fields x and y and having two methods fun and the taste. We have a class B, and intentionally for this class B I am not using extend C. It means class B and class A are two independent classes. B has got a field called Z and it has got only one method called demo here. Inside the main, you can observe here, I have the object of A, which is stored inside the reference obj. Now, over this reference obj, if I use say obj dot, you can observe here, I can only access x and y, and that's fine. And even I can access the method fun and taste over this object of A. Now, instead of A, if I change it to say B, and if I again try to use obj dot something, so I can use obj dot z because there is only one member inside the class B, and I can use obj dot demo because there is only one method inside the class B. But when I use, let's say, B extends the A, and now let's look at the magic. If I use again say obj dot something, you can see here I can use x and y because they are coming from class A and it has got a z, which is the member of the class B itself. And over the same object, I can use the method fun and the taste, which are coming from the class A, and I can use the demo method, which is again the individual method of the class B here. So it proves that whenever we use inheritance, means whenever we extend some class inside the given class, we can use the members of the class itself, as well as we can also use the members of superclass via the object of subclass here. Now you might have a question, what happens to private members of superclass and how we can access that one. So I will talk about this question in the next video, where I will talk about 10 different questions related to inheritance. Let's understand the benefits of using inheritance. The most important benefit of using inheritance is the code reusability. As we have learned, when we inherit a class in our own class, all the members of that particular class becomes the members of the subclass. It means whenever we have some code in a particular class, that code need not to be copy and paste, or we don't need to rewrite that code to use it again. Simply by extending a class, it's possible for us to reuse the code of particular class in several classes. And this is going to be the strongest benefit of inheritance while you write your application. Second benefit, it reduces redundancy of your code. So as we are going to reuse the code, means instead of rewriting the code or instead of copy pasting the code in several classes, we are going to inherit a class and we are going to reuse the code. So it means you never have, or you will have the less amount of redundant code or repeated code as possible as in your application. Using inheritance, it's possible for us to create the class hierarchy, and that's going to help us to design a system in a better way. Whenever we use the object-oriented language, so we are not going to create a single class and we are going to manage entire application by using that particular class. Instead, we are going to split our application in several classes, and these classes will have a different hierarchy. So based on the inheritance hierarchy, we are going to organize the class, and that's going to help us to understand the system and to design the application or to develop the application in easy and the convenient way. Consider we are developing an application for a particular college. So we'll create several classes such as student, exam, test, staff, teachers, practical, syllabus, and all these things. And we're going to manage inheritance so that we should have the less redundancy, means we should not have the repetition of code, and we'll try to reuse the code by using the inheritance. Okay, it means we're going to arrange the classes in such a way that we should have as possible as the reusability of code. Let's understand different types of inheritance. The most simple and most commonly used inheritance is a single inheritance, where we have only one superclass and we have only one subclass. So consider example wherever we want to define our own widget. Okay, consider we want to define a stateless widget. Here we are going to create our own class, and inside this class we have to extend the stateless widget. So here you can consider a stateless widget is acting as a superclass, say class A, and your own widget, let's say my widget, acts as the subclass. Look at a piece of code for understanding the single instance. We have a class employee that contains the name of employee, then the skills in the form of list, then it has the salary, and there might be some methods inside this class. Now, this employee class is inherited inside the class called manager. You can observe here class A extends manager. Manager may have a department for which he is working as a manager, and he can have the list of projects for which he is acting as a manager. So whatever properties, say name, skills, and salary, all these properties of this employee are now inherited in the manager. It means you don't need to rewrite those properties inside the manager. They're happily available through the employee class, and it can have its own method, and all the methods of employee are going to be inherited inside the class manager. The second type of inheritance is multi-level inheritance, where we inherit a class from another derived class. You can observe here class B is inherited from the class A, and class C is inherited from the another inherited or the derived class, say class B. It means the properties of class A will be acquired by class B, and class C will have all the properties of A as well as the properties of B class. Just look at the piece of code to understand multi-level inheritance. We have a class person that contains two fields, name and age here, and it has got the method. So we'll focus on those methods which the person is supposed to write here. You can observe here we have class doctor, which is extending a person class. It means the name, age, and the methods of person are now available inside the class called doctor. And in doctor class, we'll focus only on specific thing or the specific field that the doctor should have. For example, the degrees, then the name of hospital he may be working or he own, then the experience as a doctor he has, then we need to write or we need to have a method that the doctor class has to suppose. Then this doctor class is now inherited inside a class called specialist. And inside this specialist class, we'll focus only on that specific field or that specific properties that the specialist is supposed to have. For example, here we have a field called specialization, means what kind of the specialization the doctor or he has. For example, he might be a gynecologist or he might be a eye specialist, cardiologist, etc. And we'll write only those methods which are supposed to be inside this specialist class. And if you observe this specialist class, it has got the name and age through the class person, because this person is inherited inside a doctor and a doctor is being inherited inside the specialist. And the degree, hospital, experience, they are directly coming via the doctor class inside the specialist class. The third type of inheritance is a hierarchical inheritance, where one superclass can have multiple subclasses. You can observe here class A acts as the superclass, B and C are acting as the subclasses. It means the properties of A are now available inside the class B as well as for the class C. We have some code to understand the hierarchical inheritance. We have class shape that contains two fields, dim1 and dim2, that indicate the dimension 1 and dimension 2 for the shape. And for the shape class, we have a method called setData, where I'm passing the data for this dimension 1 and dimension 2. You might be thinking why I'm not using constructor to get the data, why I'm using this kind of technique. Because if I use a constructor here, the code or the example becomes a slight difficult to understand for the beginners, and that's why I'm using the methods here instead of the constructor. I'm really sorry for that one. You can observe here the class rectangle is extending a class shape. It means the dim1 and dim2 of the shape class is now available inside the class rectangle, and it has got the method called area, which prints the area of rectangle using the formula for calculating the area of rectangle. And here I'm using the dim1 and dim2 directly inside this rectangle class. We have a class triangle, which is again extending a class shape. It means the class shape is acting as the superclass for both rectangle and triangle classes. That creates simply the hierarchical inheritance in this example. The triangle class also has a method called area, and which is simply printing the area of triangle here by using this specific mathematical formula. You can observe here inside the main, I'm created two different objects. This is the object for rectangle, and I'm passing some data. That is, I'm setting the data for dim1 and dim2, and we have the object of rectangle here. And for the triangle also, I'm passing some data. And over the object of rectangle, I'm calling the area method, and over the object of triangle, again I'm calling the area method here. Let me run this program, and you will observe the output here. We'll get the area of rectangle, which is a 20 for this line number 26, and for 27 we're getting the output as area of triangle is equals to 100. The fourth type of inheritance is the multiple inheritance, where we have one subclass that has got multiple superclasses. You can observe here class C acting as a subclass, and for this class C it has two superclasses, class A and the class B. In Dart, we cannot use multiple inheritance. It means for a given class, we can extend only one class directly. By using level, it's possible, means by using the multi-level, C can have the B and A as the superclasses. But if you think directly, it's not possible to have multiple superclasses for the given class. What is the reason for not supporting multiple inheritance? I will talk about this one in the next video. Now let me talk about a different topic. It is not actually related to inheritance, but being a programmer of the object-oriented language, you must have a knowledge of this concept. That's why I'm talking here. So this topic is basically the different class relations that we can have. So we have seen the inheritance here. So whenever we use inheritance, it creates easy relation. Means we have two classes, and two classes will have the relation called easy. So in the subclass, we are going to extend the superclass here. There is one more type of class relation, and that is called association. Basically, let's say we have two classes. So without extending class, means without inheriting a class, it's possible for us to have relationship between two classes. Consider we have class A and class B. Inside the class B, we can create the object of class A. So using that object also, we can access the properties or members of the class A inside the class B. And that kind of relation is called as association. So whenever we use association, it's going to create the has a relationship. And there are two types of association. One is the aggregation, and another one is called composition. So whenever we have the weak bounding between the classes, that type of association is known as aggregation. And when we have the strong bounding between the classes, that is referred as the composition. So first of all, let's talk about the inheritance example here. We have seen inheritance in this video itself. So we have class person, then we have class employee. You can observe here for the class employee, I'm using extends person. So whenever we use extend person, means employee and person, they are now having some relation. And as we use extends, means we're using inheritance, it creates easy relationship. So we can read it as like say employee is a person. So let's understand the practical example that we use in Flutter. Consider you want to create your own widget. Let's say it's a stateful widget. Then we have to define a class. Let's say class my widget extends a stateful widget. So here you can consider stateful widget is a superclass, and the class that you are defining acts as a subclass here. So between these two different classes, it has the blood relationship, and it is called the inheritance, and it is indicated as the is a relationship. Now let's understand the aggregation and composition with an example. Consider here we have two individual classes, music player and the class called engine. Then we have another class called car. You can observe here inside the car class we have two objects. We have the object of music player, and I'm created the object of engine here. You can observe here inside the class called car, if we have the object of music player, over this object means by this object we can access the members of music player class. So we can say the car and music player, now they are connected, or now they have some relation. But you can observe here it's not the inheritance. Still it's possible to have some connection. So it is not a blood relation kind of connection. So this type of connection is called as association. But the observable thing is there can be a music player without a car. Means music player can exist, we can use that one and you can enjoy that one. And there can be a car without a music player. It means This music player object and the car object or the car that we have, there is no strong bounding. It is having a weak bounding here. So that's why we can say the car and music player, they have the relationship or association that is called as the aggregation. And on other hand, you can observe here inside the car class, we have created the object of engine here. And we can access the members of this engine class by using the object of engine inside the car. So still there is a relation between the car class and engine class, but it's not inheritance, okay? Because I'm not extending the engine inside the car class. Still we can access the properties. Look, that's also a kind of relationship, and that is called association. But you can observe here, engine is useless without a car. Means to run the engine, to use practical engine, there has to be car or there has to be some vehicle. And a car is useless without engine. Means if it don't have engine, we can't run or we can't use the car. So there's a strong bounding between the car class and the engine class. So such a type of strong bounding or such a type of strong relation between the classes is known as a composition. That's it for this video. See you guys in the next video. If you have any doubt, any difficulties regarding this particular topic, feel free to comment me. I will try to answer all your questions. If you really found this video helpful, then don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell notification button to get my latest videos.